Cookie World.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the September 11th Board of Finance meeting. If you would rise and join me in a Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence in commemoration of the 24th anniversary of 9/11 and the 47th school shooting yesterday for the victims in Denver.
Allegiance to the flag, America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I don't see anybody here for public comment, nor anyone online this evening. So we'll move on to Rebecca Lopez and our internal audit report. She's got some interesting information for us to share this evening on our tax relief programs.
So in your package, you have the tax relief program analysis that I compiled with the information provided from the OPM office of the state of Connecticut, as well as assistance from the assistant tax assessor. The state of Connecticut requires that municipality provide a property tax credit program to its residents that are over 65 years old, totally disabled. There's also credits for veterans and other individuals. The report, as you see, has the scale, the income scale for the state of Connecticut, whereas the range is from 0 to about $55,000, and within that, certain percentages for married or unmarried taxpayers. The assessors and municipalities, actually assessor's office, have to report these or their tax benefits to applicants to the state of Connecticut on a yearly basis. And if they don't, they get fined for $250. The town of Trumbull, as you see in the second table, has provided to the state of Connecticut, or reported to the state of Connecticut, about 176,000 plus in tax eligible benefits to our applicants. You'll also note that the population of 65 and over for the town of Trumbull is about average, as with other surrounding municipalities. It's about 17%. And about that 17% of 65 and older, about 5% are applicants that have applied and have been approved for the tax relief credit. If you notice, the town of Shelton, or city of Shelton as they prefer to be called, they don't report. They didn't report anything to the Office of Policy Management with the state of Connecticut, and it's our understanding from discussions they prefer to pay the $250 fee instead of committing the resources and time in order to report it. Their reason being is because of lack of funding, the state of Connecticut has not been refunding the municipalities for the reported amounts or for the applicants. It's kind of like an understanding that they would get refunded, but no municipality has been refunded in years. So they said, we'll pay the $250 and not submit the resources. The town of Trumbull, on the second page of the report, has an income scale a little higher than the state of Connecticut, because the state of Connecticut allows you municipalities to provide additional tax receipt on top, or credits on top of their mandate from the state. So the town also providing that has a scale of from 0 to 70%, or $70,000 rather said, with a cap of $2,600 for our residents that are eligible. And then below that, you'll see the breakdown of the 2024 grand list revenue loss. you'll, 520 residents or applicants were approved for eligibility, although due, based on their income. 580 applied, which were rejected for either exceeding or not being applicable for that application or approval. The state homeowners income program, 308 of them fell within the state's guidelines because of the income is a little bit less. So of those in the state, $172,000 plus was, or 172,595 was the amount of revenue loss, which is included in the 535,000, which is not included in the 535,000 above. So if you see the number above the 535,000 on the grand list revenue loss table, that is for the ones that were not approved with the state income scale. And then you have an additional 172,000, and then we have the disabled program, which is about 3,200 in credits that are given to them for tax relief, but that is refunded through the state of Connecticut, so that is why you'll see it reduced or deducted from the total amount or the amount that you see on the table. So for a total revenue loss, including or excluding the disability, is about $744 for the elderly tax relief program.
So I have a question for
Yes.
you. You said that 17% of our
About
population
7%.
is eligible age-wise.
Age-wise.
And of that, 5% are you currently using the program.
Right.
Of those-
Applicants approved, right.
Right, so applicants approved, but are all of that are eligible applying? Do we know that? How
We
do-
don't know
And
that.
how would we know what that looks like?
We just know based on, the programs are online. They're available to our residents. They can see what the programs are that we offer, whether they're exemptions or tax reliefs, or if it's for disability or veterans or whatever. Unfortunately, we don't know. We only know the total number of applicants, which was 580.
So they would have to seek it out on their own?
They would
We
seek it
don't
out on their own.
We don't,
They would seek it out on their own, but Social Services also has it posted on theirs and lets them know that these programs are available. If they were, say, for example, at Social Services, speaking to somebody and letting them know, the health department knows that these programs are available. Human Services knows these programs are available, and they offer them if
so
if they're.
everybody offers the information to everybody, but we don't do outreach
We
to
don't
say,
do,
okay.
no. I mean, if somebody comes into the assessor's office, then they're, informed about the programs that we offer also.
Can I ask a few questions?
Hang on, Dave's gonna go first.
Okay.
So I just wanted to clarify on this chart that you just went over. You mentioned before that Shelton would rather pay the $250 because the reimbursement doesn't occur.
$250, right?
So on this particular one, we have 172,595, and that number would be reimbursed by the state. Is that correct? But it is not.
It would be if they were funded.
Okay.
If the state of Connecticut receives funds, then they would do some kind of distribution, perhaps not the total amount. However, it has been years since the state of Connecticut has received federal funding, therefore they're not
Okay, so there's no way that
reciprocating.
we can appeal that or go. They just don't have the money.
It's just, if they have the money, they somehow divvy it up among the municipalities that do report. Unfortunately, it's been years since they receive any funding from the feds, so it doesn't trickle down.
Thank you.
Marty?
Okay, thank you. I just want to be clear. So these are unfunded mandates. Is it possible you could be more clear in terms of when the last time is the state funded it?
It's been more than 5 years. When I asked when was the last time, the assessor's office was like, they don't get the checks directly. I looked up in our finance to see if, in finance records, and see it's been at least more than 5 years from when I went back to see if we had received anything. I wouldn't doubt if it's more than 10 years.
What doesn't make sense to me is I don't understand why it's a state mandate and the state is saying, I'm only giving you money if I get money from the Fed.
Yeah.
That just seems like that's odd. So I'm be curious to understand the details of that more. I mean, if it was a federal mandate in some, if the state is mandating it and the state has this large surplus and they're not paying for it, I just find that rather peculiar. But I'll put that aside. I'd like to learn a little bit more about that. I guess the other question I had is, it looked like some towns are evaluating things not just based on income, but also based on a home's value. You know, most of the homes in Trumbull have, you know, increased in value by, you know, 75%, 100% over the last 10 years. And I know we have another program where you don't have to you don't have to pay right away. It can effectively become a lien on your house. And so I guess I'm trying to understand, if somebody's in a large house that has a huge asset value, it's not intuitively obvious to me why other people in town should be supplementing or paying higher tax rates if somebody owns $1 million house but has low income. That doesn't quite feel like a fair outcome for people in a lower house value that have income. I'm not sure why we don't take asset value into account if somebody's going to get a break. That's number one. Let me just get both questions out because I'm in a car and I can't easily see when you're ready to go. That's number one. And the other question I have is, can you remind me of when somebody is allowed to not pay their full taxes, but can have it in essence become a lien against their house? Because I would argue maybe that's where we should be enabling people to do even more in that regard, because people have a huge asset value and many people are not cash rich, but they have a large asset. That it seems maybe we could be more generous in that regard of enabling people that are in a challenging financial situation to postpone paying taxes and let it be a lien against their house because the house values have increased so radically for them. So maybe you can comment about both those issues.
Yes, with the first question, the qualifying total asset value, which includes their assets outside of the residence, and also there's limitation on some of the other towns and the value of their home. That is a discussion that we had, or I had, with the tax assessor, and that is something that she said. We discussed several options for different ways that we can do it. If we include the asset value, or if we include the maximum income on the scale. There are ways of coming up with it. We'd have to come up with the right formula, but that all would have to go through the town council to get the approval to make the change to the current policy.
But I guess what I'd ask you, it would be helpful to get the information. If it was possible, I don't remember the number of people you're saying that are getting the benefit today, but I don't want personally identifiable information, but I would like to know for, you know, I don't remember your count. If it's 100 people, it would be nice to know the value of those assets for the 100 people who are doing it. You know, I'd feel differently if all the assets are $300,000 and $400,000 versus there's a bunch of $700,000. I think that would be helpful for us to understand before taking any action. So it'd be just helpful to understand who's getting the benefit today and what's the underlying asset value. Is that maybe something that could be done to understand this better?
We can look into it. I would definitely look into it. But when we were doing the analysis, we noticed that there were individuals, for example, that would report, I'm going to say, for example, their income is low. They're retired, their income is low,
Right.
They have other, and then they have on the tax a Mercedes, for example. So they're still getting the benefits because we're not including those assets. And then we have individuals who have, you know, the higher income. However, they also have tons of medical expenses that are also not included in our calculations. So it would be a matter of just changing or getting the approval to include those items. And then when looking at like Newtown, for example, they had this huge application where you would have to list, the individual had to sit down and list every single asset outside of their residence, the value of their home, as well as any vehicle, the value of that vehicle, and also provide the proof and all that information. So it would be a matter of really changing all of
You know what,
that.
honestly, I don't really think we should go that route. I really think the
Okay.
primary asset is the home.
Okay,
And
yes.
that, you know, I don't want to go crazy on the other assets.
Right.
I'm just saying, if I happen to have a family member who has very low income and very high asset value, and, you know, they probably would fall into receiving help and they should not be getting help.
Right.
And I'm just giving my example, my family example. That would be an example where I think, you know, a person happens to be wealthy but income poor, and that person shouldn't really be getting subsidized from other taxpayers. At the same time, so that's point number one. At the same time, maybe you comment on the second piece. I don't remember the parameters for how we allow people to pay less than the taxes owed now, and some percentage of it, either 25% or maybe even more, can become a lien against the house. I actually think we should be more generous there and enable people, if they're income poor but asset rich, we should enable them to delay that payment. The town will ultimately get it. But if they're income poor and they can't do it, it seems like maybe we're in a position to help people there.
Right, and with the tax deferral, I believe the age is 75 and over, and the deferred payment would be 75% of the tax obligation. However, it includes a 3% interest per year. So I don't know
Right.
if
No,
that
I
would.
think that's fair.
Right.
And I would also, well, I guess I just would also argue, and then I'll stop here because I can't see the rest of the room. I would just also argue that potentially we should be looking at people under 75 that are in a very challenged situation, and not that we're forgiving their payment, but we're allowing it to become a lien against the home to give them more flexibility. So I'll stop here. I made my points. I'm just curious what others think and if that's something we should look into.
Okay.
Paul?
Yes, Rebecca, you've provided us with a comparative analysis of the senior tax relief programs that are offered by 4 surrounding municipalities, which I understand, but what we don't have here is a cost comparison. It's correct to say that, for example, Trumbull provides over $700,000 in annual tax relief to our seniors.
Right.
What do the other towns provide in terms of total dollars? Do you
I
have
would
that?
definitely have to call them and get that from them
Can you gather-
directly.
can you gather that?
This information I was able to get based on what they provided online to their residents.
Can you grab
Unfortunately, I
those
didn't
numbers from
find
them?
anything, but I will try and get this, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have a subset that you looked at, or did you just kind of randomly look across the state?
What I did was from the ones that were, I'm going to say nearby and more or less the same population. So if they were, I would say 10,000 more or less population than us, I took those information if I was able to find anything. Like for example, Bridgeport is a neighboring town, but I wouldn't compare Bridgeport because they have twice the population, so.
Well, don't forget Glastonbury.
Yes. I was doing surrounding towns.
No, I think that was helpful. Is there any other information that we think that might be helpful? If you, in your look-through, had seen that Newtown had a very extensive application process, and somebody else had a very simple up or down application process, where do we fall compared to that? And is that something that we should look at? I mean, I don't necessarily think, it needs to be as in-depth as Newtown, but can we see an example of each of those? Because I think that's something that if we discuss that, it's something we'd like the town council to take up, at least if we have done some of that legwork. We can say, here, look, these are your comparisons, and this is what we're thinking as far as,
Right.
from the financial side.
Right. Yes, Newtown is very involved. I didn't see Fairfield. I was able to print Newtowns. I didn't see Fairfield's that in depth, but I know that they also include the assets. Ours is pretty simple. Ours is pretty much your income, including Social Security and any pension income or anything like that. So it was basically show us proof of income, either with your tax forms or with 1099s for Social Security or whichever income benefits or proof that you have. Ours was pretty simple. I mean, I'll compare it to the other, maybe Shelton, if I can find it online, or I'll call the assessor's office and see if they can provide it. And then I'll forward that to you. But I thought ours was pretty straightforward, and a lot of times if they come in and ask questions, they can fill it in right on the spot.
Okay.
Yeah, and just for clarity, I guess, if we're going to do research on the 4 surrounding towns, I think those would be the 4 surrounding towns we'd like to see. You know, specifically Monroe and Newtown, Fairfield, Shelton. If we could do
Okay.
that would be helpful. Then we've got a kind of a comparative with everyone
Okay.
in the area.
Marty, anything else?
No, I'm not sure I completely understood when we defer taxes. I understand the tax credit, what we're talking about here, and that 700,000 was a bigger number than I anticipated. That's why I'm curious about the asset value. On the tax deferral, on the other hand, we do have a robust general balance, and if we weren't actually giving the money away, but postponing it for people in need, you know, I think that's something, and I get it's a town council issue, but, you know, whether you're 75 or not, you might be 50 and lose your job for a year and unable to pay your property tax, that it might be helpful that in that year you pay 50% of your tax and 50% becomes a lien on your home. Seems like Trumbull should be evaluating ways to enable people to live with challenging times where we're not losing the income, we're postponing it. It's a bigger discussion, but I think it's an area that should be evaluated.
Yes, and currently the reimbursement to the town is either upon the death of the recipient or the sale of the real estate, or if they move out of the town, you know, if they no longer live. But there's no like yearly 3 years or. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd also be curious to understand at the end of the day, is that, you know, if we created an asset out of that, could we, you know, I don't know if 3% is the right rate or not, but if we needed to borrow against it because we needed the money and suddenly we've created, you know, a debt instrument that has, you know, $5 million in it, if we want the 5 million, you know, how would that work? So I just think we should be evaluating this in a more robust manner to help people that need help on deferring taxes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Christy, sorry.
Sure. I mean, Marty, that's a very interesting notion to explore about, you know, a potential friendly deferral for someone who has a tough monetary time at the moment. But do we not, you know, if there's a person who's simply not paying their taxes, that ends up becoming a lien anyway, right? Like that's what, so it's really what you're almost suggesting is something that happens in practice, but in a, you're trying to put a spin on it in terms of here's something we're offering you, as opposed to here I am, I'm a person and I'm just not paying my taxes this year because it's the bottom of the pile of my obligations that I'm not able to meet because of a crunch that's happening in my life. And then the town's going to, of course, put a lien on my home. I mean, that's...
I look at it a little differently. I think what Marty's saying is you're giving somebody the opportunity to make an agreement with the town.
I totally
realizing
understand that, yeah.
Whereas the other one is punitive, right? So the lien
Right.
is punitive, somebody just doesn't pay their taxes. So I understand the nuance between that.
Right. I just feel as though there's, I mean, I guess with an application part, right, if that were to exist as a program, you'd have an application and some vetting process. It's not a person trying to play gamesmanship or something saying, hey, I don't feel like doing this.
Correct. Correct. I'm here, guys. I'm going to log off. I'll be upstairs in 30 seconds.
Thanks. Go ahead, Paul.
I was just going to suggest that we charge Christine with introducing her first resolution to the town council when she gets elected to look at this issue.
All right, I'll second that. Anyway, any other questions or any other information you'd like about our tax deferral and abatement policy? No. All right. Thank you. It was really thorough. That's a lot of work to pull that information together, and we really appreciate you doing that.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda, we have the town treasurer's report. Anthony's unable to be here this evening. He sent the report. I did speak with him today. He said nothing looked out of the ordinary for the second month of the fiscal year. If you have any specific questions, I'm happy to send those to Anthony.
We're going upstairs to your house.
For those joining in at home, today, Marty Isaac started as a hybrid, has now made it to the meeting. Vin DiGennaro will be voting for Rosemary Seaman this evening, and Christine Elleris will be voting for Scott Zemoff, who's at back to school night. I think he might have rather have been here, if I remember those evenings correctly. We're moving on to the treasurer's report. If anybody has any questions for Anthony, but it looks pretty straightforward. We seem to be fairly on target 2 months in. Excellent. Moving to our actionable items for the evening, you should have on the desk before you a smaller packet. I'm going to ask for a motion to add these 3 items to our agenda. I believe that they would then become 09, 25, 48, 49, and 50. Is that correct, Maria?
It will be 925, 48, then another 925, 49 to 51, and then 925, 52 to 57. These are year-end transfers, part of the rest of them, except that additional invoices came after I put out the agenda, so I figure I bring them all.
I move we add these 3 items to the agenda.
to add- Yeah.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Dave. Can I take that by unanimous consent?
Yep.
All right. So this will be added as she stated. Okay. Mr. Timpanelli.
Resolution 09-25-01, appropriation,
Hold it. Can you just turn your mic on? You're not green.
$2,593 from the general fund balance to capital outlay account number 01060800-581888, and for purposes of studio upgrade and other router replacement. I move its adoption.
second.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Vin. Kate Donahue is here tonight to speak to this small piece of equipment failure. Would like to stay online, right?
Is this on, or do I have
Nope.
something? Okay, that sounds good. I know this is a lot of money, and I appreciate you taking it into account. We had asked during the fiscal year '26 budget process for money to replace our servers, which really controls the whole TCTV process. Our router failed between when the budget was adopted and now, or is failing. So we had that as a separate project for next year. We need to move it into this year. So that's what the supplemental is basically to cover, which is what allows us to get our signal out to the different platforms. And since it's an election year, local election year, we do an election night show, and I really don't want to have any issues with that live show, not going off as planned.
And the 2593 does the whole project, including the routers, and then that's it. So we won't have the second piece in the next
That's
year.
added on to the 30,000 something that you guys already approved as part of the capital outlay in this fiscal year's budget.
Any questions for Kate? All right. So the motion on the floor is to, for a supplemental appropriation of $2,593 from the fund balance to the capital outlay account 01060800581888. Can I take that by unanimous consent?
Thank you guys very
Yay.
much, appreciate it. We'll order the equipment tomorrow.
Can't get on the network.
To Bill first.
All right. Mr. T?
Resolution number 09-25-02 is a year-end supplemental appropriation in the amount of $423,877. It's from the general fund balance to a number of accounts in the attached document to cover year-end shortages. I move its adoption.
Second.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Paul.
I believe the material begins on page 16.
Now, Maria, these year-end transfers that are coming as the supplemental appropriation, it's because they're in other accounts. It has to go back into the general fund and then get reallocated. They weren't within the department, so they couldn't just slide money around. So it's not extra money coming out of the general funds, just so everybody's aware.
Yeah, no, it is. These are.
This is
These
extra?
These are coming out of the general fund, and the largest one being the workers' comp. We know the workers'
Well,
comp.
that part, but we had money from, at the end balance that goes back into the general fund to cover some of these.
Yeah,
Correct,
if you look
yeah.
at it that way, yes.
Yes. Like, it wasn't just overspent. Okay. Any question on the 423,877, which is going from the fund balance to the various accounts as noted on page 16?
Is this the time to ask for an explanation on the workers' comp number?
Just settling old claims, and I actually had the,
Was there anything that was significantly out of?
Kerman rep. No, it's just, we're trying to clean up old claims as we've been doing all along. And it's just that the claims are more expensive, you know, the costs are more expensive, the doctors are more expensive, the settlements are more expensive. If they're on, light duty or on lost time because they can't work, you know, their comp rate is higher, so that's why we keep on going up.
Do you have any idea how many claims are included within that gross number?
I do not, but I have a list, I just don't have it with me.
I'm just curious at a
I'll
cost
get
per
back.
claim.
Yeah, I'll get back to you guys.
Any other comments, questions? Can I take that by unanimous consent? Okay. Mr. T?
Resolution 09-25-03, a transfer from contingency to, again, the attached list of items in the amount of $275,927 to cover supplement of union contracts, the MATE contract, and the Public Works and Parks contract. Move its adoption.
Second.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Dave. These are just contracts. This is that money that we
Yeah.
leave till the end every year.
Yeah, the Parks and Public Works and Parks contract settle, it was a 3-year settlement. So it impacted 2 years this year and 1 year in '26. So this represents 2 years. That's why it's so large.
Do you have a question? Can I take that by unanimous consent? Moving on.
Resolution 09-25-4, balance
Paul, can you just hit your green light?
to the attached Public Works schedule in the amount of $206,930 to cover funding gap in snow overtime and snow supplies. I move its adoption.
Second.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Vin. Dave was snoozing. Anything on this one?
No removal. We had quite a few small snowstorms, and the impact was bigger than if it was a bigger storm. That's
Yeah.
what I'm told.
I think they said they had 14,
Yeah, it's-
was it 10 or 14 individual episodes, and they were all on the weekends, and they were the kind with the coding where you had to have multiple trips out. It would have been easier to have a bigger storm, he said.
Mhm.
So he had talked to us a couple of meetings ago. Any other questions on snow removal and the supplemental appropriation to the Public Works accounts as outlined? Okay, can I take that by unanimous consent? All right.
Resolution 09-25-05, year-end transfer for the Police Department for a number of items within the attached material in the amount of $171,399. I move its adoption.
Second.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Vin. Any questions on what's provided to us from the police department? It's to address overages because the cost of training has gone up, and we were able to hire several officers requiring full uniform, electricity overage due to Pura charge for public health benefits.
Any idea when we will get a hired several officers report?
Yeah, we actually hadn't gotten that report in the last little bit. Can you ask?
I will ask him for another report. I think he gave me
Chief
something
Lombardo
last
sent that
time,
over.
but it was after the meeting. I will ask.
I guess the other question is this a rate variance or is it a unit variance? Like why didn't we know what training costs? Did we have more people going through training?
Yes.
Or is that what the variance is? Because more people went through, not that the training cost changed?
Well, I think it was a combination.
This is weird to me that we didn't know the training cost before the budget year, but I guess it could change mid-year. But if it's a unit
Well,
variance, I
wait,
get that.
wait.
A volume
This-
variance.
This training dollar amount is salary. people, officers going to training.
Okay.
This is not the
Okay,
cost
so
of
this is a
attending the
volume,
training.
this is a volume variance, more officers going through than we had
Yes.
put down. Okay,
Yes.
got it, that's fine.
I think the last report we saw was they were at 79 out of 82 positions full. Is that correct? Yeah.
Something like that.
Good. We told him to hire what he could, and we would put it back in. And that's what we're looking at. So the motion before us is a year-end transfer in the amount of $171,399 to the police department in the training and utilities accounts. Okay, take that by unanimous consent. Mr. T.
Resolution 09-25-06 through 09-25-10, Public Works Department, a year-end transfer in the amount of $124,400 to cover overtime overage, maintenance, repair, service contracts overage, and utility electricity overage. I move its adoption.
Second.
Thank you. Paul, thank you. Vin? Any questions on this? These are all transfers within Public Works. Okay. May I take that by unanimous consent?
09-25-11, again within the Public Works Department, in the amount of $26,189, a year-end transfer to cover end-of-year overages for WPCA. I move its adoption.
Thank you, Paul.
Second.
Thank you, Dave. 26,189, end-of-year WPCA transfers. May I take those by unanimous consent?
Resolution 09-25-12 through 09-25-24. Again, year-end transfers in the amount of $441,167 to cover year-end shortages and see the attached report.
Again, these are various accounts closing out transfers within the departments. Any questions on any of these? Can I take this by unanimous consent?
I'll second if you need it. Yeah.
Did we not do that?
No.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Dave. Now can I take it by unanimous consent?
Yes.
Okay. Well, you guys were so quick before.
Resolution
I just want to say beforehand that all of the transfers that are listed are available online in our packet, and the information is copious, so if anybody's curious and wants to see all of the individual line items, they're there. Go ahead, Paul.
Resolution 09-25-25 through 09-25-46 for Finance Department in the amount of $16,997.48. Move its adoption.
Thank you,
Second.
Paul. Thank you, Ben. Any questions on the $16,997.48? Can I take that by unanimous consent? All right.
Resolution 09-25-47, Golf Commission, in the amount of $38,253, year-end transfer to cover shortfall in overtime, building maintenance, electricity, overage due to Charge for public benefit charges. I'm curious as to why that was not recognized in every department, and
It was just about every department.
why didn't we handle that up front? We knew about that coming, no?
No, we did not. We did it towards the end of the year. Did not know about that.
Really? Okay. Amount of $38,253, I move its adoption.
Thank you, Paul.
Second.
Thank you, Dave. Any questions on this for the enterprise fund for the golf course? Can I take that by unanimous consent? All right. Moving to the small packet.
Small packet, first item is Resolution 09-25-48 from general fund balance into the accounts identified in the amount of $26,559. I move its adoption.
Second.
Paul, thank you, Vin. This is purchasing technology, EMS, fire marshals, and TCTV. Can I take this by unanimous consent?
Resolution 09-25-49 through 09-25-51. Cover year-end shortages of $33,564. I move its adoption.
Thank you, Paul.
Second.
Thank you, Vin. Any discussion? This is in the departments for the police department, shortfall training, new hires, social services, and Parks and Rec. Program supplies to program expenses. Can I take that by unanimous consent? Okay.
Last one is Resolution 09-25-52 through 09-25-57 to cover year-end shortages as per the attached report in the amount of $3,525. I move its adoption.
Second.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Vin. These are small items in building maintenance, tax collection, animal control, health department, social services, and the education travel reimbursements. Any questions? Can I take that by unanimous consent? All right. Woo-hoo! Does that close us out for the year, Maria?
Closes out for the year.
Check, check. I think you get a round of applause. It was a very challenging year.
And there's this.
All right. Moving on. Discussion items. We have our year-to-date budget report for expenditures for the 2026 fiscal year. Maria, you want to walk us through anything?
It's early in the year. Salaries should be spent about 17%, which in most departments there are, if they're fully staffed. I did find a couple items that I need to review because they're already over budget, and I think it's because some of them, they have vacant positions and they're using seasonal or part-time. I saw one account that probably, there's a purchase order that probably needs to be reclassified, but nothing, I don't see anything unusual right now.
Where's tree warden?
Tree warden is on page 89. Yeah, that one's already over. That I gotta look at.
Maria, also, would you ask Tom McCarthy for just an update on hiring, where we are with those open positions? There were a lot last year, and he had done some yeoman's work filling many positions. So
Yeah.
just a update of where we are.
So both Tom and then PD as well.
Yeah.
I think that tree warden was supposed to give what did we say, every 3 months or every 6 months, an update on a report on?
Right, so we had mid-year
I
report
assume-
and then
So
end of year.
something's weird happening now, so.
Correct, so she's gonna check on that.
I'm gonna check on that, because it could also be that they're miscoding it to, instead of the regular program expenses, it's in the emergency account. So I am gonna look into it.
Okay.
All right. Anything else in our expenses? Anything in revenue we should be aware of?
Is there anything weird revenue from a state perspective? Like, I still think, I still can't get over this mandate on property tax, and they don't fund it. That's why, like.
They
what-
did fund it a while back. I remember getting like approximately 200,000 at one point. I could look back how far that was.
I'm surprised
Is
there's
that
not more
something-
towns screaming about it.
Is that something we should talk to our state delegates about? Like,
Maria, relative to that, can you also get confirmed that what Rebecca said is accurate with regard to federal funding of these dollars? I find it hard to imagine that those would be federal funds that would get
No,
reimbursed.
I think it's state, but the state, it may be a pass-through to the states, I'm not sure. The ones we're
can you
not
get-
receiving anymore?
Yeah, can you just
Yeah,
get that
yeah.
confirmed?
Yep. We do get reimbursement from the state on the veterans, a portion of the veterans and the other program, the disabled. We do get a benefit on that. Not very much, 9,000 or something.
Maria, do we have an update as to the Veteran Center, what funds they've received or haven't received, or where we are?
I do
In
not
that
have all the
project?
details. There is one grant at the state that we haven't been confirmed that we received it or not, that we were awarded or not. We could get that for you for next time.
Yes, please. And then you have a year-to-date budget report to close out 25.
Wait, before you do that,
Go ahead.
did we get a formal request from the Board of Ed yet?
They don't need to do a formal request.
Well, I mean, have they taken any money from?
They would have to
They're
ask.
supposed to notify us. They don't have to go through us, but we're supposed to be notified.
Correct, but they have not. The money is still in the account.
Did they add money to the account?
Now, they would have to come through, I have to bring return the money from their account to the non-lapsing account, and I haven't got anything from
So
them.
the thing that I just don't understand, like, it's far past the end of the year, they had a surplus.
Yep.
They're not allowed to hold the surplus. So where is the money?
Well,
Idiot.
if
Did it
they're-
go, did it come back into our,
Yeah.
it came back to us?
If they are not coming back and saying that they want it to go into the non-lapsing account, it stays with the general fund. It goes back to the general fund,
How
just like
much
every
was-
other department.
How much money came back into the general fund?
According to them, which I haven't finished reconciling their books, 328,000.
And then at some point in time, they'll try to take it into that other account.
I would think they would have done that, but I'm not sure. They would have to come to us, at least with a request that they're doing that.
To move it. Okay.
And they can't move it on their own. So unless they tell me to move it, it's not going to that account. It goes to the general fund.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on the 2026 expenses or revenues? Let's look at the year end for 2025. Maria?
We just did all the transfers and supplementals.
So that's it.
So that's it.
We're done.
So,
We have to close the year.
so we'll get the final,
Yeah, we could get the final.
the finals for next month. Okay?
Yep.
And then we have approval of our minutes for the August 14th meeting. So if everybody take a look at that. I'll take a motion to approve the minutes as attached.
So moved.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Vin. Any corrections, comments, or changes? None at all. Can I take that by unanimous consent?
Yes.
All right. Well, it looks like we're done before 8 and ready for Thursday night football. Yes, there's Thursday night football. Thursday night football. Anybody have anything else? I assume nobody wants to stay.
Into adjourn.
A motion to adjourn by Vin, and everybody wants to go.
Good.
Thanks.
Curious to see what the time limit is,
Limit on,
how long they have to.
it's the end of October,